Hey guys, Mr. Antoon here. We're talking about right to privacy today. So again, we're going to flip the classroom and I'm going to kind of give you the content. This should be a little shorter than defendant rights. So this is for Wednesday, Thursday, April 1st and April 2nd. So here's our learning target for today. You'll get this in class. The right to privacy. Let's outline the evolution of it to some extent and its application to the issue of abortion. So first off, let's start off with one of my favorite cartoons because it's animated, and it's an eye poking through the O in the USA Patriot Act that's watching us. It's kind of an invasion of our privacy. I don't know if you knew this, but USA Patriot is an acronym. Now, you probably hate acronyms or dislike them, but this one is one of the longest ones I've seen. So it stands for, if you didn't know, Uniting and Strengthening America by providing the appropriate tools required to intercept and Obstruct Terrorism Act of 2001. Why do you think they passed this? Obviously, we were freaked out by 9/11 and the attack, and we wanted to find out if there were any terrorists within our country's borders so they could spy on individuals. They didn't need a warrant to tap your phone. They can collect a lot of information to tell us whether or not you are harboring or you're aiding and abetting terrorists. So this was a kind of a freaky thing where we lost a lot of our liberties. Well, 14 years later, Congress did the right thing by passing another act. And this has ended a lot of the Patriot Act from 2001. And you could read some of the things that they can do now, or they undid, adding transparency and ending bulk collection, preventing too much government overreach, giving you back your civil liberties. And this is also an acronym, USA Freedom, and this one stands for Uniting and Strengthening America by fulfilling rights and ensuring effective discipline over monitoring, Act of 2015. So I had to give you a couple crazy acronyms with what happens there. Tomorrow in class, once you watch this, we're going to go through the main idea of this one, as well as these two. Okay? So the question is, do we have a right to an abortion? Kind of. Do we have a right to privacy? Yes, we do. Is that right enumerated in the Constitution? No, it's not. So hopefully you understand. I'm going to walk us through how we get that right to privacy. So number one, definition of privacy is the right to personal life free from intrusion of the government, whether it's state, local, or even federal. But it's not explicitly stated in the Constitution, but it's implied by the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 9th Amendments. And this was from Griswold versus Connecticut. They used this term called the penumbra. And I'm going to explain to you what the penumbra is. And I want to think of an eclipse. I know you remember the eclipse a couple of years ago at the beginning of school, which is pretty cool. But let's use spotlight here. And let's bring in the Constitution and the shadow created by the Constitution, right in the direct center of the Constitution where it's the darkest area, that's enumerated. So it's exactly what you're reading here from these 4 amendments. But the shadow on the outside, the lighter shadow, is called penumbra in an eclipse. So they use this idea to show us that we have implied rights from the Constitution. And that's the case of the right to privacy. And as you can see here, this is about abortion, the right to privacy, which allows women to have abortions. You can read there, look, it says High Court rules abortion is legal in the first 3 months, High Court being the Supreme Court. And LBJ died the same exact day, which is really interesting. Cool headline from the New York Times. But this gives the women and the doctor the ability to choose to have an abortion. And that was from Roe v. Wade. So women had total autonomy over the first trimester, first 3 months of a pregnancy. If they chose to have the abortion, it was up to her and the doctor, not the government. It would define different levels of state interest for the 2nd and 3rd trimesters. States got to choose 2nd and 3rd trimesters from there. And laws were changed in 46 states after this court's ruling. And we'll walk a little bit more into that. I'm going to play a 3-minute video that'll walk us through that. But again, this image, it's not a cartoon. It's talking about the power of a woman, her mind, her body, and it's her choice. The government shouldn't decide whether or not she should be a mother and have that kid. But again, there's a fight to the opposite side of that, guys. And I know that this is not an easy topic to discuss. In the post-Roe world, you can see who is likely in dark blue to protect a woman's right to privacy to have that abortion. So whoever has abortion access in those states, the states in light blue, which is our state, Texas, makes it tougher for women to have that right to privacy for the abortion itself. And that's kind of ongoing into this day, where a lot of states are adding heartbeat bills. If you can hear the heartbeat, you can't have the abortion after that, even though it might go directly against Roe v. Wade or Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which is the next one. So here's the video I want to play for you. It's 3.5 minutes.
By a woman who on paper, at least, is named Jane Roe. She was 21 years old. She was pregnant, and she didn't want to have this baby. The Texas law was one of the strictest in the nation. It allowed abortion only in cases to save the life of the mother. So even if you had a situation where a young woman had been raped or the victim of incest, she still could not get an abortion in Texas.
Equal pay for equal work, doing our proud. Equal pay for equal work, doing our.
Women were by definition, by nature, intended, many people believed, to take care of homes and children. And to say that's not true, but that women have a right to be lawyers and doctors and police officers, that was radical.
You have the Equal Rights Amendment moving through the Senate and the House. You have Ms. Magazine being started by Gloria Steinem. You have the American Civil Liberties Union starting a women's rights project. There's a lot of agitation in America over women's rights.
There was an assumption that if you had a baby, if you were a mother, you were no longer entitled to pursue a career. Abortion rights meant symbolically that women did have choices. Women could say, not now, later, or not at all.
I think the justices believed that the women's rights movement was so clearly the wave of the future that was just about to happen that everybody's for abortion because everybody's for women's rights.
In fact, in conference, there was an easy majority for striking down the Texas law.
Wurmberger gives the opinion to his friend, Harry Blackmun. Harry Blackmun and Wurmberger had been childhood chums in Minnesota. Wurmberger, I think, believes that he could have more control over the opinion.
Blackmun didn't know why Berger assigned the opinion to him. Maybe because he'd been counsel to the Mayo Clinic back in Minnesota. But what would his doctor friends think about this case? Blackmun was in turmoil. At home, his 3 grown daughters happened to be visiting. So at supper, Blackmun put the question, "What are your views on abortion?" By the time his wife and 3 daughters sounded off on him, Blackmun announced, "I think I'll go lie down. I'm getting a headache."
Justice Blackmun was a very green justice at this point in his career. The workload is very tough. It's very much of a burden within the marble walls.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
Good evening. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions. The majority in cases from Texas and Georgia said that the decision to end a pregnancy during the first 3 months belongs to the woman and her doctor, not the government. Thus, the anti-abortion laws of 46 states were rendered unconstitutional.
How in the world did such a conservative justice write this incredibly activist liberal opinion in Roe? Well, if you go back and read the opinion, it doesn't read as some sort of charter of feminist rights. It reads as a charter of doctors' rights. He actually researched the history of abortion, and his visceral response was the state ought not to be telling doctors how to regulate pregnancy.
All right, so you guys heard that. It's interesting to see or to hear.
You have a case coming from Texas, begun by a woman.
I can't. Okay, there you go. So, again, we're going to go back to this. It might be a different screen, but let's just play around with this. Okay, so a conservative justice is the one who decided on this case and wrote the opinion. Well, years later, in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, 1992, 20 years later, we now have these stipulations. This was from Pennsylvania. This is now the 3 stipulations you're going to hear about in someone's presentation. You had to wait 24 hours, kind of like a waiting period where a woman can think about her decision, because it's a big decision to end a life of inside her womb. So that's a big deal. Discuss it with her family members, stuff along those lines. If you're a minor, you had to require the consent of one of your parents. Okay. The judicial system can bypass this if they needed to. But again, that was a big issue with that one. And then lastly, the married woman must notify her husband of the intention to have that abortion. Well, they struck down this last one. The other two are still in play. So my question is, does this reaffirm or does this erode Roe v. Wade's decision if it now has more stipulations on it? Something we'll talk about tomorrow in class. But again, you can see this. This was taken like this snapshot 2015-ish. It says 55 million babies have been aborted since 1973. Why do women have abortions? You can see they don't feel old enough or mature enough to raise a child. They're not ready. You can see they can't afford a baby. Are the top three that women choose according to this one. But you can see abortions have gone down. You know, they went up right away and then they've been trailing down ever since. That's up to 2014 for this chart. Abortion rates by state. Most of the liberal states have more access. Therefore, they might have more abortions based on this chart. They continue to vary by race and ethnicity. Most of the people who are having this would be a Black, non-Hispanic, then Hispanics, and whites are the least to get this one. You can see again some statistics that will back us up, some facts. New York Times showed here that 3 states banned third trimester abortions. It's Virginia, Texas, and Iowa, and that's the total population. And then 9 states have no restrictions on abortion, and that's 28 million people. So you guys see some of the differences between the states. The most popular abortion bills of 2013. Look, these are bills in state legislative courts, guys. You can see again that they're out there. 20-week ban, abortion providers, limit the ban of Affordable Care Act coverage, stuff along this line. They're trying to limit that. 2019, 21 states are hostile or very hostile towards abortion rights. And you can see the fight continuing to go on since 1972. You could see federal judge blocks Alabama's near total abortion ban, especially when you could see the law would have sentenced the woman to 10 years to life in prison for the abortion. I'm sorry, not the woman, but the abortion provider, if there's no, with no exceptions for rape or incest. So they would bust the abortion provider for abortion. So they got rid of that one. You can see statistics, USA, nothing compared to China. Now, I put this up here just as a understanding that China's gotten rid of that law. So people were aborting if they had more than one child because they were going to be taxed higher. China's gotten rid of that. And that's kind of where we're going to leave off for today, guys. So this was a 13-minute video for today. I look forward to seeing you in class. Take care.